And I shared my screen. You should see kind of a PowerPoint slide that says what's new at Rapid Gun Systems. Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today. This is another webinar that we try to do a monthly touch base with our existing customers to talk about specific features, functionality, train you about new capabilities and introduce new things to you. And that's really the focus of today, is kind of our what's been happening lately at Rapid. Many of you are in the trenches dealing with your day-to-day operation and using our system, and thank you for working with Rapid. We really treasure that relationship, but hard to find time to think about what's changed, what's new. It used to be, and in the past years, we've tried to do something at SHOT Show where we talk about all the things that we've done in the last year. And obviously with SHOT Show being virtual, we weren't able to do that. So we thought this webinar would be a good forum for presenting some new things. And so my name is Andy Smith. Joining me is my colleague, Chris Thompson. I am Business Development Manager and responsible for sales and spend a lot of my day working in the firearms industry with our firearms customers. Chris is our firearms specific VCIO and the product manager for the gun solution. So Chris will talk more as we go through about his role and how that's added value to our gun solution. But we're both going to be doing this presentation together.
Morning, everybody.
And one thing we're going to do from a housekeeping perspective, we have time for questions. We built that into the presentation. So on your Zoom meeting, you should be able to open up the Q&A, and there's also a chat functionality. Feel free to type messages into either of those, ask questions. We will, if it makes sense to respond to those questions immediately, we will, but we'll also circle back and deal with them at the end in case you know, I don't want you to feel like your questions are being ignored. Now, last thing about that, if your question is very specific to your store, we'll follow up after the call so we can deal with your specific issue or concern. With that being said, let's go forward. I am making a recording of this webinar. We're going to post that on our website, on Rapid Gun Systems, and also on our education site, which is called counterpointuniversity.com. Should be up on those sites in the next 24 hours or so. And feel free to share that link with your employees and anyone who can attend today's session. So what are we going to talk about today? As I said, we're going to review what's new. Rapid, we're really focusing on things that we've been doing in the last year, so calendar 2020, and also now bleeding into the first quarter of 2021. We'll also talk a little bit about our new electronic 4473, and as a result of the changes in the regulatory structure around 4473, how we've had to adapt our system to support the new requirements of that document. And then lastly, we're going to talk about what's in the pipeline. You know, what are we focusing on right now that should be coming down soon? Obviously, a lot of material to cover, so we'll wrap up and answer questions. There's a very fun chart to have put together. Bliss and I worked, and Bliss spent a lot of time kind of compiling this. But you know, Rapid is one piece of your operational puzzle, and we like to, you know, in our view, we're the center of that pie. But really, you, the customer, are the center of this. But Rapid Gun Systems is there to support your day-to-day operation. And in this chart, you see all the interconnectedness that our system has to other tools and functionality and vendors and integrations to really kind of provide a complete package of solutions for your store to be successful. You can see here a bunch of e-commerce, shipping and delivery, tax compliance, mobile devices, and we'll, as we go through this, talk about some of the things here. But I wanted to put this on the screen so you'd have a chance to kind of look. This is rarely do we get to see the big picture of everything that we kind of actively do and connect to. It's really helpful to see this broken out that way, even for us as a company, to kind of look and see how comprehensive our solution can reach. First thing we're going to talk about, obviously, is the E4473 update and enhancement. And Chris Thompson from our team really led that effort, so I'm going to let Chris kind of talk through this.
Thanks, Andy, and good morning again, everybody. I'm looking at the attendee list, and I see a number of names that I recognize as well. So thanks for joining. The first thing I want to talk about is the E4473 update and enhancement. As you're all aware, the ATF did release a new form, 4473, back in November. And the biggest change of this form is that they moved the firearm section up to Section A, right? So what does that mean? That means that they're now requiring that any firearm that the customer is purchasing must be on the form prior to the customer filling out Section B. So that fundamentally changed the way our E4473 integrated with the system, whereas before you would be able to go through the entire 4473 process before you ever even got to the touchscreen to ring a ticket, right? Well, now, because of these new requirements, now the 4473 process will start in the touchscreen with a sale ticket and a firearm being put on hold, at which point you will be able to get the information that the customer needs to log into the customer app to fill out Section B and approve Section A. The biggest part of the new E4473, and I think one of the best parts, is the fact that everything is done on the computer by the customer, really on any device that they choose to use, whether they want to use, maybe you have a dedicated iPad, or maybe you have a dedicated computer as a kiosk, or maybe they want to pull it up on their phone, right? They're able to verify the firearms in Section A, fill out Section B, sign the thing, submit it, and then you as a cashier are able to then go review those different sections and complete the whole thing on the computer as well. And then, of course, we did opt to phase this in stages, where the first stage was just Section A and Section B. And then the second stage is where we're at right now, which is deploying expanded capability that does allow you to complete the entire form, which includes Section C, D, and E. And then, of course, the next phase will be to allow the submission of ENICs, which will automatically pull the information from the 4473 that the customer entered into the NICS submission form. And then, of course, the final phase will be digital storage, but we'll talk more on that later. One of the biggest takeaways from this new E4473 was also the opportunity we had to, not only did we need to redesign the touchscreen to facilitate the new E4473, but we used that opportunity to make improvements and in user-friendly friendly usability and intuitive design, right? And what do I mean by that? Basically, we spent many hours redesigning the touchscreen with a lot of input from you, our customers, and advisors. Essentially, we're able to improve the touchscreen while keeping it as familiar as you are all used to.
Yeah, I think the nice thing about our touchscreen is it's always a work in process. There's always opportunities to add things, change things. And as you all know, every state's slightly different, every store is slightly different. So your input on that is really helpful. If you find a particular part of our user interface to be cumbersome, or gosh, this would be so much easier if there was a button to do X. The nice thing about our solution is we can create that button, and hearing your feedback really helps us. You know, that'll be an echoed concept as we go through all of this. You'll hear that over and over again.
You're absolutely right, Andy. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the reasons I love this system, is because of the recurring theme of customization. We do strive to provide a very robust out-of-box product, but the customization is always been one of my favorite things. Moving on to the last part of the E4473, we thought that when a customer is filling out their E4473, it's the perfect opportunity for them to also provide their phone number and email. So we did add that into, it's the last page of the capture form. It's not required, but if the customer does provide it, then we will pull that back into the system and update the customer record accordingly. And of course, that just gives you another avenue of approach for reaching out to your customers.
Okay, so not everything we did was focused on 4473 and revamping the touchscreen. Let's look at a few other things that we did last year. A big one was integrating with a tax compliance tool, Avalara. Other stores have, there are other systems out there. TaxJar is one that I've had customers ask about from time to time, but these are tax compliance tools. In today's, especially e-commerce world, states have been more and more aggressive in claiming that you have to report and track and collect sales tax locally, even if you're an out-of-state vendor. The qualification of what is doing business in that jurisdiction varies state to state. And so as you cross over certain thresholds of volume in various states, you have to collect tax. Avalara is the tool that does that, automates that for you across your enterprise. And not only do they track the calculation of tax in each jurisdiction, but they'll actually able to report and submit your filings in those various states. We actually did a webinar on Avalara and the integration we have to it. I think that was the last webinar we did for GUN. So certainly go to our website and take a look at that. But we're excited about it. We have a few customers using it and look forward to it offering value to more of our customers. Chris, you want to talk about range?
Sure. One of the things that we've done is improve the visibility. Well, it's a bullet here, right? Visibility of membership and status and waiver expiration on the touchscreen. Now there is, we have introduced a new option in the store configuration where you can set the, what's the word I'm looking for? Waiver date limit, right?
The expiration, yeah.
Expiration limit, right? So I think the standard would be something like 12 months, but you might be in a region where it might be 6 months, or perhaps it's even longer than 12 months, where you can now specify that. And so when your customer signs the waiver, they will have the waiver sign date, and then on the touchscreen, it will automatically determine what their expiration date should be based on what your store is configured.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Chris, it even changes color. So if it's red, that just means their waiver's expired. You need to re-up their waiver. Right.
Red, bad, green, good. And then, of course, we did improve the tracking of waivers for all shooters in an integration with Smart Waiver, but I'll let Andy talk about that.
Yeah, we now can track waiver dates for everyone coming on the range, report that at the touchscreen, so you're not having to wait for somebody to go onto the range and talk to an RSO in order to see if their waiver's up to date. We want them to deal with that in their kind of getting processed onto the range. Also with Smart Waiver, like many integrations that we create it because one or two specific customers ask for that capability, and we build based on their ask. Oftentimes we'll design a feature or function or a capability based on the specific things that customer needed. But the nice thing about the gun range, and the gun range part of what we do, every range is unique and different and has different preferences or approaches. And so working with more customers who want to use Smart Waiver, we've gotten a good list of features that they wanted to see improved, and we worked with them to create those enhancements to make Smart Waiver even more robust when we integrate. Now it's doing a better job of automatically linking to existing customers and creating new customers as we go through. We added the ability to track consignments that are not firearms. So about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, we made a significant improvement to the system, how we handle used guns, trade-ins, buybacks, and consigned goods. And again, that was an area where our customer feedback was a huge benefit to helping us improve those capabilities. And one thing we heard since then, when we did the initial consignment, it was really focused on firearm consignments. So you basically were serializing those and tracking them. We had a lot of stores ask for the ability to do consignments for non-firearms, so added that capability in the last year. Also, state by state, there's unique requirements. We're seeing states, start to do more regulation in the, in the current regulatory structure that we have. That means, more and more issues coming up for states needing special forms filed and that. So we did, just as an example, the New York P12 was a form last year that we integrated in. It generates the New York State required transfer form that you have to file when you're doing a gun transfer. Now I've got customers in, I think, Michigan and Washington State where we're actively looking at similar requirements and generating those. It's one of those things where in your state, if you have a specific requirement that you need the system to adapt, we're able to create those forms and generate them from within the system. What I like to do in those situations is kind of crowdsource those developments. So in New York, we reached out to all of our existing stores, and I think we built a group of 4 or 5 that all collectively contributed to the cost of that. But it was everybody paying just a fraction of the cost to create it. Win-win for them to now have that capability built in. We do the same thing in any of those other states, kind of reach out and see if I can build a group that makes getting that capability added at a much more cost-effective basis. But you obviously know your state laws and requirements way better than we do. And so letting us know, talk to me, talk to Chris, and there'll be contact information at the end where we can do it. So I saw two questions come in about the gun range functionality and smart waiver. You'll see at the end that you can send an email into Rapid Cares about those, but you can also reach out to me or to Chris. We'll provide in the email that we send out as a follow-up ways that you can contact both of us. Last thing, we do a lot of vendor integrations. We have about 9 vendors that we're integrated with, and we're always adding new vendors. The last one we added was Ultimate Night Vision, which is an optics company. So anyone who has our current vendor integrations, if you buy things from Ultimate Night Vision, you can add that integration into your system. For anyone else, whenever you do a vendor integration, you get to add at least one vendor that will create just for you. And we make those available. We want that list of vendors to continue to grow and cover as much of the industry as we can. We know right now supply constraint is such a challenge for all of you working day to day that anything we can do to give you information about what vendors have and what's available as close to real time as possible, that's a win for you. So let us know if there are particular vendors out there that you want us to connect to.
I'll take this one, Andy. So another, another example of one of the many quality of life improvements that we've made is new improved receipt, order, and layaway, whether it's an invoice or a receipt ticket. Previously, and this is an example here of a smithing work order, so to say, or invoice. Previously, if you were trying to release a smithing order, you would often have to go look up the serial manually, whereas as you can see now, it is printed right on the invoice for ease of access.
Yeah, some of these things are little cosmetic benefits, but if it weren't for customers saying, gosh, my life would be so much easier if, we wouldn't have even known to do it. So these are things that are easy fixes that when you give us feedback, we want to respond to. We take your feedback very seriously, obviously. Similar examples on the layaway and order and receipts related to tradebacks and buybacks and consignments, right?
Right. You can see right on this example here, whereas before for a buyback, a trade-in, or a consignment, we used to have all of the information kind of jam-packed down at the bottom, and it wasn't really concise, and it was sometimes in some cases it was kind of confusing. But what you can see is thanks to customer feedback, we have designed it to be a little bit more similar to a receipt that you would get from, say, Walmart, right? A little bit more standard, a little bit more familiar. All of the information is tied to the line item itself, and better information about what the money, as you can see, it no longer says something like miscellaneous charge. It's now buyback consideration. Again, more examples of those small quality of life changes.
So a couple of other things we've done, we've integrated with accounting and financial systems since about 2001. We integrate with many different accounting systems, but one that the historically Counterpoint never connected to was QuickBooks Online. We've always integrated with the installed version of QuickBooks, but the online version was not. Again, Intuit made a huge push over the last few years trying to encourage more and more people to use their online version. They want to move everybody over to that subscription-based model. And so we had more and more customers asking us for that capability. We built it ourselves. And so an API-based connection into QuickBooks Online, pretty comparable to what we do with traditionally installed QuickBooks. And again, for anybody who doesn't integrate, it's not necessarily the right solution for every store. It sometimes forces you to do more accounting than you might want to do. But if you're doing sophisticated accounting and you want to see if that process can be easy, this is an easy area where we can send information directly into your financial system, into the general ledger based on a map to your general ledger data points or accounts. Mobile devices. So, I mean, we've been very lucky that we have a good mobile device that we provide to customers for their physical count. Many of you have rented our devices and in that to do your physical count and your kind of periodic bound book verification. A few of you have even purchased our Genome device to use in your store. Wanting that device to be more and more useful, in addition to the functionality that we wrote for the rapid physical count, where we allow you to do your physical count and your bound book verification. Now there's a tool offered by 2B Solutions that supports serialized inventory. It adds additional functionality, things like a stock check, the ability to do receiving, to do order picking, to create a purchase request, even to start a customer transaction. You could start a ticket on that device and park it and have it be waiting at the register. So 2B Solutions offers some compelling capability that makes that device even more useful for you. They're running right now on that Genome, which runs in a Windows mobile environment. Windows Mobile has kind of a shorter lifespan. It's pretty much being phased out by the technology world, and so 2B is actively moving their functions over to an Android platform, and that's good news for everyone because obviously good inexpensive devices that would run on an Android, that could be mobile devices for things you can use in the store. When they've currently got about 3 of their 7 functions ported over, and we're actively working with them to finish that. So some existing capability and some changes and benefits on the horizon for that.
Thanks, Andy. That's good information, and I'm often asked about different ways to do inventory management. So I'm glad that we have many options available. Next up is the gun labels, improved gun labels, in fact. Thanks to feedback, and you'll hear me saying that quite a bit because it's the God's honest truth. Thanks to feedback, we have redesigned our labels to take advantage of not only the label's real estate, but to make it a little bit more user readable, right? You can see that before, our label used to be kind of all scrunched together and compact, and it was difficult to discern one piece of information from the next. And now it's, in my opinion, much easier to understand what's going on. You've got the item description, you've got the QR code for 2D scanning barcode. You've got the basically every information that you would need, very easy to read. And that's I appreciate the feedback we got on that because I'm very happy with the changes that we've made.
Yeah, Chris, would somebody submit a help desk ticket to get that label updated in their system?
Certainly. Or if you have any other questions, one thing that I have to constantly not only remind myself of, but remind everyone of, is while we do strive to offer an out-of-box label that fits for everyone, we still do have the ability to customize it. So you might find that maybe you want additional information on your label, or maybe it's showing something that you don't necessarily need. And we always have the ability to customize. So you can either submit a help desk ticket to do that, or you can reach out to me or Andy directly, and any one of those avenues will get you to the correct destination.
Perfect. All right. On the service side, we've been doing a lot. And so, Chris, tell us a little bit there.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, this created the monthly webinar series, right? Welcome to the monthly webinar series for April. That is something that we started doing within the last year. And I believe the majority of these have been spearheaded by Bliss. I don't know that she's ever given one, but I'm fairly certain she is the one responsible for wrangling all the resources together and actually making these things come together. So much kudos to her for that. And hopefully I believe that these have been productive and fruitful. And from what I've heard, there's some very good feedback on some of the things that we've dived into on some past webinars.
Yeah, in fact, Chris, it's good to point out that all of those webinars are recorded and on our website. For some of you, you may have only been using the system for 4 or 5 months, and at the time we did a webinar on advanced reporting, that might have been completely overwhelming to you. But now that you've got some experience with the system, going back and watching that advanced, reporting, or the one on sales kits, they're intended to be timeless. So go back and look at them whenever, but it may improve the value that you can get out of the system, learning new capabilities, new functionality.
Well, I know it was certainly overwhelming for me. So advanced reporting is always a great one to tackle. So the next thing we did was the implementation of a dedicated VCIO for firearms. Once again, that is me. Hello. Hi. Nice to meet you. One of the things that I love about this role is not only that I get to interact with so many of you to hear about some of the things that you might be struggling with, or some of the ways that you think things could be improved, right? I think that the VCIO role really is there to provide strategic support, right? Whether it's helping to predict the future or help knowing what's going on operationally and helping you plan for the future, it's really trying to help you get the most value out of the system, and really be the person that they can interact with, that you can interact with and get connected to other parts of Rapid. In fact, I'm sure many of you have reached out to me to only then be passed over to, say, Manuel or perhaps one of our help desk technicians. And so it's a great way to get connected, stay current on events, understand your system, and plan for the future. And then, of course, there's the other side of the VCIO role, which is the project manager, right? Really, that means that I am responsible for the functionality of the system as a whole, right? This really is something that Rapid hasn't had before. We've always had a sort of consortium of different users contributing to the firearm direction. But when it comes to the perspective or the voice of the customer, the programmers and development perspective, Andy's or Bliss's or Archie's perspective from business management, really never has a tap been put on all of those different avenues to kind of create a focal point and understand the overall context of what it is that you guys care about, right? And so that is where I think essentially it gives it a great perspective, right? What we've done, what we can do, where different opportunities fit, and where they make sense.
I know that makes a difference to how customers get the information and result that customers see. I mean, the one that you've got on the next bullet obviously is a direct result of your efforts, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is one of our biggest ones, and one of my personal favorite achievements is the streamlining of our upgrade process. I'm sure each and every one of you has gone through the struggle of going through an upgrade in the past, and perhaps things could have been better. Well, now they are. One of the things that we've done is really removed a lot of the human element from the upgrade process. right? So a lot of tasks that can be repeated by a computer or script or task has been done so. And as a result, we've been able to lower the average cost by about 40%, which I think is huge. Not only that, but we've reduced the error rate as well, because when you automate a repeatable task, that leaves it less prone to issues occurring. The second part of the streamline upgrade process is that we now do all upgrades in a mock environment, which means that if there were going to be any issues, we would have detected them way ahead of time, already corrected them before they even get to your system.
Yeah, this is an area that we're constantly trying to improve. I think any system as complex as Rapid Gun is, it makes it difficult to do a perfect upgrade. But the things that you're doing right now are having a direct result, not only in our cost to deliver it, but in the result, you know, the accuracy and surprises that don't happen from those upgrades.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep, and you know, kind of in that same spirit, we're not trying to make this, we're not trying to sugarcoat it. We know that there's things that we can do better, and I just want you to know that we're focused on it, we're staffing on it, and one of those that I think all of you will certainly feel is, support. We are just as busy as you are. I mean, it is a crazy time that we're in right now in terms of the gun industry, in terms of supply chain, in terms of new customers wanting to come on and use our system. We're almost double the new customer starts this year than we were last year. And so from a business operational perspective, that means we have to continue to staff up to just to meet our customers' needs. And we know that we're doing it. We've already increased a large part of our staff for implementation training, help desk, and programming. We've increased programming and support by 30% and continue to have plans to expand that. So, we want you to have the experience that when you have a call, someone answers the phone, and that you're dealing with people who are trained and skilled, and we're putting a lot of resources to support that, to continue to make that better. If you ask us to be self-reflective and say, what's our biggest challenge? Giving you better service is probably the thing everyone in our company would say. We want you to be more happy with the service you're getting. And so that's our commitment for this coming year, is to really improve that. Last thing, sorry about that. Let's talk about some new hardware. You know, a lot of our gun stores don't use standard off-the-shelf kind of retail terminals. There's some benefits to them, and obviously they're very sleek, kind of all-in-one touchscreen design devices. They have a useful life of 7 to 10 years, so they're ruggedized. They're designed to last in the industry. Also, the new one that we just started implementing has a nice customer-facing display on the back. There are even configurations where you could have this mounted on a pole. So if counter space is a premium for you, or you really want this to look very modern and sleek, there's options for how to do that. And we can show you some visuals of that. But this new terminal is nice. They've moved to, NCR's finally moved to like a letterbox instead of a square display. Way more real estate on the screen to do all the things that we do with our touchscreen. And as I said, a nice customer facing display on the back. Credit card machines also updated last year for anyone. We use the Ingenico ISC 250 for probably 5 or more years. And that device end of life from Ingenico, and their next generation of products are the Lane 5000 and others in that series. But NCR certified Lane 5000, we've started to deploy that. There's some advantages of that platform. You can actually pre-encode it with multiple security keys, makes the system easier to support. So we're seeing good results with that device. Hopefully more devices coming down the pipe from them. We're really pushing NCR to get a lower cost credit card terminal available and certified as well. All right, now that's the touchscreen refresh. I know that Chris talked about this, and I'm going to go into an actual demo and show you real examples of this. But this was a really concerted effort. We spent a lot of time testing, running all the different variations and scenarios for different states, for different store processes, and we continue to, even though we've rolled this out, we continue to have, a good question comes from a prospect, or we go through a demo and we realize that this might be better if we do it this way. but this is kind of our latest and greatest iteration of the touchscreen. And we'll walk you through some of the functionality that we added. Much of this was driven by the new 4473, but it also was an opportunity to, if we could do something better, how would we do it? What's the best experience for you as a user? So now we're going to go through that 4473, and in the beginning I'm just going to show it with slides, but I'll jump in and actually show you some portions that are real. For many of you that are already switched over to the electronic 4473, as Chris said, you're only doing section A and B. We're rolling out actively now the rest of CDE, and obviously as soon as we've stabilized that and everybody's getting comfortable, we'll move towards the NICS integration part of it. We expect that to be sometime before the summer, and we'll talk to that more. But the experience for any of you who aren't familiar with our electronic 4473, with the new process, you go up to the register, you create a ticket for the gun. And when you create a ticket for the gun, you put it on hold, or if it's a layaway, you just complete the layaway, and it generates this document, which we call a chit. The chit has two important pieces of information on it. You're going to give this to the customer. They can take their smartphone and scan that QR code, and when they scan that barcode, it'll take them on their smartphone to our customer app for them to fill out their 4473. Alternatively, they could walk up to any of your devices that you make available to them to fill out that 4473. The other bit of information they have are these three numbers on the bottom. Those three numbers will be very important when the customer goes to fill out their 4473. This is what identifies their transaction and their firearm on that form. So they're going to go up to that device, whether it's their own smartphone or any device you make available to them that can run a browser. It's important that you know that this is not connected to the rest of your system. It's just running a web browser. So none of your stored data or other information is exposed by them having access to the 4473. They're going to go to the website. When they scan that QR code, they'd be taken to this website and they'd click on that begin. When they do, it's going to then ask them for those 3 bits of information that were printed on that chit. And when they enter those in and hit next, they're taken to verification. Is this the customer? Yes, this is my name. And when they click on that, it takes them to verify that this is the firearm that they put on. Now, of course, if I were selling 3 different firearms to that customer, all of them would appear in this part of the system. You're basically completing section A of the 4473 here. When they say yes, they'll be asked to then fill out their information. And I didn't want you to have to go through the tedium of watching me fill out a 4473, so I did that already. You'd go through all the Q&A. Just like our old 4473, there are some things we automatically flag so that we want to eliminate common errors in these forms. For example, if you put in no middle name, it'll flag that you didn't enter a middle name and require them to either enter one or put NMN. If you try to put a PO box in the address, or you put USA and county instead of you're thinking it's a country, it'll flag those and tell you to correct those entries. We added some new features, as Chris mentioned before. When you get to the end of the 4473 before submitting it, it actually asks you to put in your email address and phone number. If you already have that customer in your database and they already have a phone number and email input, it pre-fills that out for them so they can verify or change their email if it's updated. It's just another opportunity to add data about your customer into the system. This field's not mandatory for the customer. They can pass it by, but it certainly gives them a chance and gives you an opportunity to collect that without having to do any manual data entry. At the end, when you submit, again, this doesn't look that different from our old electronic 4473, but there is one really important distinction. Now, when you agree and certify after reviewing all your answers, it takes you to a digital signature capture. I apologize for my horrendous handwriting, but you can use your finger on a touchscreen, or you can use your mouse and sign digitally. And then you're going to submit and be asked to take you to the counter, tell them that you've completed your 4473. Once a customer has completed the form and they go up to the register, this is a new part of our system. They're going to, on the touchscreen, you're going to have a button that says launch the Cashier app, and it's going to open up this other web-based tool right on your system. And let's go into that live part right now. So this is that Cashier app that you're just looking at a picture of. And incidentally, if I go over to our touch screen, show that real quick, you'd basically be able to launch that right from your screen. There's a button on the portal for that. So we're going to now go in to that Cashier app. You'll see all of the 4473s for today that are filled out. You can actually go back and see multiple dates in the past as well. All of the ones that you've dealt with, whether they're signed, rejected, completed, submitted, all of those different statuses. And so you get to filter what you see to make this quick and efficient, keep your list short, but you could actually have visibility and pull up any of the 4473s in any status from the past. So today I'm just looking at the one that I filled out right before this webinar so that you'd be able to see it. I'm going to open that 4473 and it's going to tell me, all of my sections. Section C is currently disabled because I have to approve section B before I get bounced over to section C. So I have to approve B before I go to C. Section A, of course, is the gun itself, and I'd be able to go there. Next, I'm going to bounce down to section B, and you'll see all of my entries filled in. Now, this is one enhancement we did to the form. When you, the cashier, are reviewing it, you're seeing it in a nice, you're seeing it in exactly the layout where this information would appear on the paper form. So it's easy for your team, if they're used to the paper 4473, to see this exactly the way they should. Kind of that what you see is what you get experience. Another enhancement for this is obviously when a customer is filling out their disqualifying questions, section 21 of the form, if they answer in a way that disqualifies, the system doesn't tell them that they've disqualified, that they've answered a question in a way that's not going to let them get a gun transfer. But now if I go to approve that form and one of these questions was answered incorrectly, it actually puts up an error and says you can't approve it, it's got to be disallowed because their answer is wrong. Also note, very common thing, if a customer gets a question wrong because they didn't understand it and they want to go back and fix it, you do have the ability to push this back to the customer. When you approve this, it now lets you go into section C. And again, for many of you, this is new functionality. Even if you're using A and B today, now you'd be able to go into C. And one of the best, quick fill features, you've already scanned this customer's driver's license to put them on the ticket to start the process. So the system has that information about the customer. So it's saying, hey, I've got this in Counterpoint already. Do you want me to add it in? And so say, okay, and it will have put in to your expiration date, your driver's license number, your state, makes that part really easy. And you're going to select your gun. You're going to submit the other information about your NICS check, and then eventually submit it here. I think it might give me so this might require me to put in a date here. So let's put in 4. And let's say I haven't gotten the result yet, but I'm going to submit that. And the next thing it would be is, okay, now I'm going to go to my NICS check. So in the ultimate system, that would be viewed, and I'd be able to see those. And I'm going to now show all of them, including proceed, and refresh that so you can see them coming back here. Once I've been submitted, after I get my next results, I can come back into section C and do the answers. There's also functionality for, let's say the customer's doing their pickup, and in states where there's a holding period, they've now ready to complete that. They can recertify in section D. In this case, it's saying I have to mark it as proceed. So lots of checks and balances in the system to shepherd you through all of this. But let's put in the proceed and put in a number. And submit that. But as you go through this, it will now let me go back into that proceed record, and I'd be able to, even fill out the final portion for the transfer, just already pre-populated with the store information. I'd be able to put in, and I can even sign on here and complete that and submit that record. If you pop up a different date on this, it will automatically tell you the customer has to recertify, and you'd be able to go in and have the customer recertify their answers to the 4473. So we've thought through a lot of the details of this, and it's a very robust functionality. Take you a little time to get used to it, but I think you'll find it a really good fit for generating that full electronic document. Now today in this environment, we still require, ATF still requires customers to print up those documents. There's of course a variance that allows you to issue all digital storage. We are kind of waiting for the ATF to regulate that with more permission, not requiring the variance when they finalize their regulations about what's required. But there's guidelines for how to store digital documents. Our goal ultimately is to offer that, and we'll talk to that a little bit later. But the whole idea here is you would then be able to print and generate that final 4473 right from here. It'll generate it in a PDF format that you can then store. Looking ahead to an all digital storage, we might have to encrypt this document and store it in certain ways, but the idea is that we've now got a completed form that's digital, that includes the digital signatures, and is usable and retrievable in the system. Going to go back into our presentation here, and we'll pick it up for there. What are our top priorities for 2021?
I'll talk to this, Andy. First of all, thank you for going through the demonstration of the E4473. I thought that was, you did a really good job of covering all the little nuance without being too detailed. And so good job on that. The priorities for 2021. Well, gun range functionality will always be a priority, right? That'll never go away. Things will always improve. New features will always be added. Some of the things that are at the top of that list right now is better membership tracking and subscription memberships, which entails recurring billing. This is definitely a hot ticket item. And there are a couple of different avenues that we are exploring for the best possible path forward. And so do expect to hear more on that in the future. Another big ticket item is the gun broker integration. Currently, we do have gun broker integration, but this improved enhancement will be the essentially the automation of your listings. And so what I mean by that is the integration will best attempt to manage your listings for you based on sales, inventory, transactions, things of that nature. And so essentially you would be able to create a collection of items, whether it's one single item or a group of items, and manage to have the automation manage the listing that way. Deploying integration with Leads Online. I'm going to let Andy talk a little bit about that one.
So in some jurisdictions, they have the local jurisdiction has done a contract with depository services like Leads Online, where if a gun store is taking in a used gun, trade in a buyback, a consignment, or even stores that do pawn, they're required to submit information about those items to a database where law enforcement can then search for stolen and lost goods. Leads is a very popular one. We've had a number of our customers around the country who are required to submit. You typically know you're required to submit because a local ordinance is passed requiring you to do that. So if you're required to do that, typically the rule is that every night, you have to report to the database all the information about those items that you took in that day that fit the qualification, whether that's all used guns or that kind of thing. For those stores that are doing it, we probably have about 5 stores now that are interested in that online integration. It's currently being built, so that should be rolling out fairly soon. But if any of you other stores are out there having to submit to Leads, or if there's another database that you're required to work with, just not having to manually create that data feed over to those sources, something we're happy to consider doing. And again, it's one of those crowdsourced type things where if I can find a bunch of you that all have the same requirement, it's a very cost-effective way to do it, to share those costs. Obviously, the next submission is the next one on here. It's, I think, the next biggest thing that we have to roll out. And as I said, our goal for that is this summer to have that functioning, hopefully sooner. But we want to make sure that parts A, B, C, D, and E are stable and people are trained on them before we add one more level of complexity. What we're finding in all of this as we continue to get more and more sophisticated, every transaction adds a new nuance. I want to change the serial number on this. I want to take that gun off the list. So going through all of the variations and permutations of that, we don't want to kind of jump in the deep end of the pool without a life preserver. So doing it in stages is a very conscious, intentional thing that's intended to give you the best functionality and stable functionality. The last thing, I talked about it earlier, but the digital storage of 4473. When I talk to new gun stores, when I talk to people that are our current customers, this is the biggest ask. We all want to stop having to print up those forms and have them more accessible and get rid of those boxes and boxes of files in your storage areas. Obviously, something we're very much paying attention to. All the things we're doing with creating an all digital form are leading towards being able to store digitally. It is a priority for us. We just want to do it in a way that we don't have to do it multiple times. And so if you look at the way the ATF typically regulates these things, they do the variance for some period of time. Then they allow it to be more permissive, what I call safe harbor regulation, where as long as you comply with those guidelines, you can do it. That's the way they did their electronic bound book. That's the way they did their E4473. So our expectation is it's going to be the same. And so if that proves out, we would expect sometime this year that they're going to pass more permissive regulations, and you don't have to go through the variance process then. Just looking at how they've rolled out the variances, they only did about 2 of them up till the beginning of this year. And then in the last few months, they've issued about 60 or more new variances for stores to do this. So they're getting more comfortable. That's a good sign. They're getting comfortable that the regulations and processes they put in place are working to meet their concerns and needs. And that means we can trust more that the guidelines that they put out there are going to be close to the final ones that we'll build to.
Well said, Andy.
So we got some questions, and I'm gonna go through some of the questions that people have asked, and then as I go through those, I will, certainly encourage you to go into the Q&A or go into the chat and ask us other questions. We've got plenty of time for that here. So one of them is a question from one of our Pennsylvania customers. They don't use NICS. Will we integrate with PIX? I can answer that one because I'm very familiar with the PIX system. To my knowledge, PIX doesn't allow for electronic submission, so there isn't even a PIX online form. Last time I checked, it might have changed since the last time I looked at it, but I don't believe that you can have any kind of web-based submission into PIX. It's always a phone-in. The idea, though, behind the NICS submission is it's basically scraping data from our system and plugging them into a form. I know many of our customers are in states where you don't use NICS. Even our home state, California, where we're located, uses DROS. So certainly the technology, the logic, the programming behind submitting to NICS would not be that different to submitting to some other form. Our priority is NICS because it does, and somebody just corrected me that PIX does now allow for electronic submission. So if that's something that you want to visit with us and get on the development calendar, we're happy to do it. I know we have a lot of customers in Pennsylvania, so that would be a good one for all of our Pennsylvania customers to kind of work together to get that capability, because obviously there's then a benefit. Used to be, I thought you had to call it in there, but I'm glad to see that it's progressed. Some states allow, some states don't. The ones that submit directly to their state system, some allow for digital and some do not. So, but the idea of opening a web form in our system, plugging data into it and submitting that's not something we can't, that's certainly within the realm of what we are capable of doing. So building that for Pennsylvania is something we can get on the calendar. Going through other questions, Chris, maybe you can answer this one. Somebody asked a question, can we automatically default to NMN and to include, they put like quotation marks. Is that something you have to put in?
So I assume what they're asking there is, can we, if there is no middle name, can the value be quote NMN quote? One, I don't know that those quotes are required for NMN. I know they are required if it is an initial only. But the other thing is we want to be very careful about what values we are automatically adding or removing when it comes to the E4473. So what I would say is if there is no middle name, you'll want to make sure that the customer record and Counterpoint is updated to reflect that that missing middle initial. And then that will be what gets transposed over to the E4473.
Yeah, Chris, I'm also kind of reluctant to autofill an NMN in the thing because, again, flagging that a customer missed it eliminates the error where they really, you want it to be intentional that they're putting that in
Right.
there.
Right.
Oftentimes people don't think about their middle name, and so they'll just skip that field. And it is just a way to
Right.
to make sure they do it. I know even in mine, when I'm using my own smartphone, it might have pre-fills, like it automatically fills in information about you, and rarely does it plug in a middle name. So you could inadvertently skip that, and then your form's incorrect. So I'd want to avoid that as much as possible.
Mhm.
Somebody asked, how do we get the updated touchscreen? And I think to answer that specific question, if you're updating to the electronic 4473, you have to get the updated touchscreen. Anytime we're doing upgrades right now to the current version of Rapid Gun System and Counterpoint, we're including that in there. So hopefully that answers you. And Chris would be the right person to talk with after this presentation. Someone was asking about the gun range functionality in Smart Waiver. How do they learn more? Obviously, talk to me, talk to Chris, or really anyone on the Rapid team to get more information. But Chris would be a good person to kind of coordinate that. And any other questions? Let's see if will the changes automatically update, or do we need to set up a time? No, every one of our customers, we're not a cloud-based system where one day you wake up and the system automatically appears. For the 4473 changes, Chris, what's the process like for customers to add CD and E?
If they are already on phase 1, where they're using section A and section B of the E4473, then it is just a matter of reaching out to me and getting that scheduled, and we can work on a case-by-case basis for each individual user.
Yeah, so there's some training you're going to want to follow, and we're going to try to do some training videos to make that easier and less dependent on us scheduling a time where you can kind of watch someone go through, similar to what I did in the demo today. But setting up those trainings and feeling comfortable that you know how to use the form is going to be important to making that an easy transition for you. But as far as updating that web-based tool, it'll update as soon as Chris pushes it over to you. Don't see any other questions. I am really appreciative of all the questions people asked, and want to thank you for participating here. We're almost wrapped up, and I kept you to an hour, so that's always nice. Just last things here. Just echoing what we said before, if you want to learn anything more, here's information about this. Feel free to rewatch this webinar or share it with your team. We're going to post it within the next day on our websites. Give us information, give us feedback, tell us things you want to see improved in the system. And also, if you have other topics you want to learn about, it doesn't matter how minute or how much you think, but it's something that you always said, gosh, I wish I could do this, or my life would be so much better. Tell us, maybe that every other gun store out there has the same concern, and they'll all benefit from that. So we're always looking for topics, and what we think you need and want may be very different from what you really do need and want, and you're the better judge of that than we are. Thank you again, everybody. It's been a pleasure talking to you today, and really appreciate having you. I really regret not being able to see you all face-to-face at SHOT Show, and hopefully next year in Vegas, we'll see each other again.
All right. Thank you, Andy, for hosting this, and thank you, Bliss, for putting it together. And most importantly, thank you for everyone who participated and asked some good questions. I appreciate your feedback.
All right. Have a good rest of the day.
Bye now.